Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Um, Global Life, we are here to help athletes transition to life after sports. And I'm Abiola, I'm the founder. And today's session is called Finding Your Way. It's a session for everyone that's going through a transition, whether it is from playing to not playing or a different level of playing or whether it's injury. But during this time, we just really want you to be able to ask questions and learn from our hostess, Emily Hayes, who was a college softball player. She's a certified primal question coach and is being a professional and has 15 years of experience working with athletes in understanding their identity and their transition. And this exercise today is going to be done with RJ, who we were so lucky to have as an intern this summer. It was part of our team. He's a football player and an MBA, MBA graduate, just recently graduated, right? Yes, MBA graduate, and he's been most recently, trying to figure out that transition from being a football player to navigating the real life. So he's going to go through those steps with Emily during this session. And then last but not least, we also have Jamie, who also was a softball player, played professionally as a world champion, and has also her home company. Uh, Remind me the name.
The passion-driven
Passion
athlete.
Driven Athlete, yes. Where she helps people break through mental blocks and lead from a place of self-worth. So everyone has two different journeys, but nonetheless journeys and transition. So I'll pass it on to Emily to get us started with the session. And if you have any questions, please chime in. This is an interactive session.
Thank you so much, Abby. I am absolutely delighted to be here with Global today to help athletes navigate successfully out of sports. It's a topic I'm very passionate about, both personally and professionally. But to give some context on why this topic is so important, there was a recent study conducted by the NCAA that found that nearly 75% of former athletes reported some difficulty transitioning out of competitive sport. And that is most likely seen in both collegiate and professional athletes. Those difficulties can include, but they're not limited to, depression, identity loss, anxiety, substance misuse, loneliness, and difficulty finding purpose or career direction. So today we're going to focus on the challenge of finding purpose and career direction after sports. So I'll begin by sharing my story, the framework that helped me overcome my transition crisis, because it felt like a crisis while I was going through it. And then we'll hear from RJ and Jamie. So, like most collegiate or professional athletes, my love of sports began at an early age. I began playing softball at age 7, and by age 9, I was competing on a travel softball team, where my summers were consumed with traveling to tournaments around the country. So my young life, like many of yours, was filled with sports and academics. It included a cycle of setting goals, accomplishing them, and then repeating the process. So dreaming and futuristic thinking were ingrained in me from a very young age. By age 16, I was going on college visits and being asked by academic counselors if I knew what I would be majoring in. And I distinctly remember having no idea and looking for my dad for guidance. And he just said, well, you can't go wrong with a business major. And I was like, fine. I was happy to have an answer and declared a major almost immediately after stepping onto my college campus because let's be honest, I was way more concerned with my life on the field than my life in the classroom. But my lack of planning for life outside of sport caused a lot of problems once I graduated from college because I had no idea who I was apart from softball. It had provided me with identity, structure, purpose, and community. So when it ended, I felt completely disoriented and pressured to decide my next steps very quickly. I mean, I couldn't just sit around. I mean, we're kind of taught that as athletes. You got to keep going. You got to keep trying to reach the next goal. Uncertainty really had never been normalized for me. So I handled the next chapter like I handled my sporting career. You set a goal and you accomplish the goal. And so my next goal was make money so I can rent my own place. It was very practical. So without much thought, I applied for a few positions in the business world and landed a managerial job at a propane distribution company called Blue Rhino. And although I was really grateful for a steady income and the ability to afford an apartment, I sensed that it wasn't the right fit for me. I was really bored. I was going through the motions, but I stuck with it for about 10 years because I really had no idea what else to do. And security was like a major like felt need for me. So it provided that sense of security. And I think because of that, I felt a little stuck in it. So when I was about like in year 6 or 7 of working at Blue Rhino, I was introduced to a pastor who had also been a collegiate athlete, and he agreed to mentor me. So the first thing we went through was a book called Finding Your Way, and the book is by Dan Webster. And when I started the book, I mean, I was like in my late 20s, and it read more like a YA novel rather than a framework for my next step. So I was very skeptical. But at the very end of the book, the authors created a framework made up of 4 different parts. And these parts included looking back, looking in, looking up, and looking out. And today we're going to focus on looking back and looking in. And then I will briefly touch on the last two. So essentially, this framework acknowledges 2 things. Number one, it acknowledges that purpose is revealed over time and not discovered instantly. And number two, direction emerges through reflection, conversation, and action. So that's kind of the 2 things that the framework really goes after. So the beginning is you look back before you look forward. And this was actually my favorite part. It provided a lot of clues into what my next steps could be. So the authors ask you to identify 3 people who you knew before the age of 10, and you ask them, what are 3 characteristics that were true of you when you were younger? And how did you engage in play during that time of your life? So play, being you built forts, you played with Barbies, you were like more entrepreneurial, you were, making businesses, creating businesses, or creating art, you were more creative. So play, that piece for me really brought up a lot of insight because I was actually the business major wasn't so bad for me. I was entrepreneurial, but because I loved to. I remember having, I would always have a bookstore, and it was, I'll date myself here, but it was when you could rent, like when Blockbuster was popular. So I ran my own Blockbuster, like through my play. And so that was confusing to me because I was in the business world, but it wasn't, I just was feeling so bored and I lacked purpose in it. So my mentor and I were able to kind of talk through that, which I'll share a little bit later. But the answers to these questions began to offer clues to my next steps. And then the next step is you look in, and this is all about building self-awareness. So you learn to read the pages of your life experiences. So some of the questions that are asked in this section are to make a list of classes that you've taken and to name which ones you enjoyed and which ones you didn't enjoy. To think about the jobs you've had, both part-time and full-time. And again, what did you like about them? What did you dislike about them? And even if you weren't thrilled with the job overall, you identify the parts that you did enjoy. And so that piece of self-awareness really thinks through kind of your next career move. And then it asks a question of, was there any volunteer work that you've done that was meaningful? So now it's beginning to touch on what are some vocational possibilities. These might not be things that you're going to make money doing, but they will help you to feel maybe that it'll feel that sense of purpose that you're missing from playing a sport, or that it'll create natural community. So it really was about it's really about the career piece and the vocational piece. And sometimes those collide in a job, but more often they're pretty separate. You're doing both. So and then they invite you at the end of this look-in section to invite 3 or 4 of your closest friends out to dinner and to share your findings and to ask for their feedback. So just to pause for a second, one thing I love about this framework is, especially for athletes, because when you're in that transition, you're trying to figure out not only who you are as a person, but you often lack community because you were so used to being a part of that team going after a shared goal together. And then when your sport is over, then it's like, okay, all of my teammates have, they've moved, they've gone on to other ventures, and you feel alone. This framework very naturally brings in that community aspect with family, with friends, with mentors. So I really love this piece of it specifically for athletes. And then just briefly, the last two are looking up. So this step encourages people to consider their larger purpose and the impact they want to have. So, it really feeds off of that volunteer work you've done or the things that, that maybe that are happening in the world that make you angry and that you want to be a part of being the change in. So it gives you, that greater cause. And then it asks an existential question like, so no matter your faith background, you spend time answering why you believe human life is valuable and full of potential. And then you identify, again, the community piece, 2 people that you know who seem to live with a larger purpose. And then you ask them why they show up each day and use their talents for the greater good of the world. So this piece is really honing in on that vocational piece, that purpose piece. And then finally, the lookout section. This is when you align with a specific vocation or sweet spot. So you use what they call the Finding Your Way matrix. It's a grid that will help you assess potential jobs or vocational opportunities based on the information gleaned from the previous exercises. So this is where it's so helpful to have a mentor or a coach or a counselor in the process to kind of help you weed out the things that you've already talked about, which ones are most important, which are less important, and then you can kind of come to, a few options on potential jobs or vocational opportunities. So for me, once I completed this framework, it took about 3 months to do it. We took a lot of time in between, so I had time to process with others. But I had 2 potential jobs that I wanted to pursue. One was counseling, and the second one was nonprofit work. Those were kind of the number ones that met all the criteria in the matrix. So in about like year 6 of working at Blue Rhino, I decided to go back to college to get my master's degree in mental health counseling. And then after I got my master's, a few years later, a group of us started an anti-trafficking organization for women in Haiti. And I think for both of those things, like find this process of going through finding your way, really looking back, it was simple. A lot of the questions are very elementary, but it had a life-changing impact on my path forward. And I've seen it work in the lives of so many others over the past 15 years. So it's simple, yet it's profound, and it really does make a lasting difference. So enough about me. I would love to transition to a live coaching session where we can kind of see the looking back and looking in action with RJ. So, RJ, how are you doing today, RJ?
Good. How are you? I'm ready to do this. It was a pretty cool thing that you sent before, so excited to.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. And to give you some context, RJ and I went through the looking back and looking in like a small session a few weeks ago. So he's had time to talk to some family members and friends. So before we get into that, will you take a moment to introduce yourself and just tell us where you're at in your athletic and professional journey?
Yeah, so I'm RJ Smith. I'm from Houston, Texas, but I currently go to school in Chicago right now. I've played sports literally my whole life. My main sport at first was basketball, but I had got I had got more notoriety at football at one point, so I chose to pursue that. And then I ended up going to a Division I school called Houston Baptist University, and then pursued my master's at a school in Chicago called Roosevelt. And so I just got my MBA, and now I'm getting another master's in training and development. So currently done with football, trying to see where life goes from here. So.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing. And how has it been as you've started to make that transition, like out of football? Have you felt, disoriented or have you felt any of those difficulties that I talked about in the beginning?
Nah, definitely. That's why I thought this opportunity was very cool because like I'm literally doing what it's for right now. So,
Mhm.
but I did feel a little disoriented and like I have a lot of friends that are kind of going through the same thing, so that helped a little bit. But at the same time, it's hard to really go off of them because we're just going through different things at different times and different locations. So it was definitely a little weird, which it's still a little weird, but hopefully I can get the hang of it. I'm still young, so there's still a lot to learn, but we'll see.
Awesome. And was like taking the time to look back when I think as an athlete, we're so used to looking forward. How did that feel for you?
It was kind of, I don't know, it was pretty cool and weird in the same way because I don't usually, like, I have looked back before to see certain things that I used to like and see if it will help me now or in the future. But actually sitting down and like purposely asking people, like, how was I like and doing that was a little different and kind of gave me some good insight. And it was kind of cool to, hear and look at.
Awesome. And so we started by looking back and talk. So let us know, like, who did you choose to talk to? What people knew you before the age of 10?
So yeah, I chose my mom, my dad, and my sister. I was going to choose my grandmother, but I was like, I was with my sister the most, so let me ask her. So that's why I chose.
Okay. And then what characteristics came up when you asked them to list a few characteristics of you before you were 10?
So all of them said honest, they said hardworking, and I was like, damn, it's the same thing for everyone. It's gonna get repetitive. But my mom ended up saying stoic and then loyal, and then my sister said adaptable and resilient. So
Okay. And were any of those a surprise?
uh no, humbly, but because I've heard that a lot throughout my life, but it was still cool to like get a reassurance and see how that could help me like go on and see what I can do.
Yeah. I mean, what parts of those characteristics can you take into your next chapter?
I feel like a lot of those you can, the hard working part obviously is going to present itself wherever you are. And then the stoic, like being stoic, I feel like that's a good thing and loyal, kind of being yourself, not letting other things get into your head and other things influence you, even though you might see someone doing this, someone doing that, knowing what's right and doing what you think is right. And then that's that's what I took from it because those are kind of all the characteristics they gave me were kind of vague, but still good in a way where it can help you. So that's why I
And
took,
it reaffirmed things that you already knew about yourself.
which was cool because sometimes you need that reassurance from the people that, are close to you. So
Yes. And I think reminders, especially in this transitional season, like
mm,
this is who I am. Even
def
apart from sport, this is who I am.
definitely, I think that helps a lot too because I am in a season right now where I don't know what I'm going to be doing in a couple months or what the future, what's going to happen in the future for me. So hearing those, it was really good and it helped.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. And did you talk to the same people about how they observed you playing when you were younger?
Yeah, so I talked with my mom the most about that because we had a call after I was sending her this stuff, and she was saying like examples were like I played with a lot of, action figures. I was really into like superheroes and Power Rangers and wrestling, so like storytelling, stuff like that. And then I did build elaborate forts. She said that with exclamation points. So I guess
Okay.
I guess I did that a lot. I do remember it a little bit, but from the answer she gave me, I guess I was really into storytelling because Power Rangers, superheroes, wrestling. So
Yes. And so you said you've gotten your MBA and now you're pursuing another master's.
Mhm.
What parts of those kind of lead back to, oh, I was building forts, I was telling stories.
Mhm.
Are you able to connect the dots?
Honestly, yeah, especially with those characteristics that I got to, like being hardworking and being stoic and, disciplined. I feel like whenever I was doing those, I had those same characteristics, whether it was watching a show or playing with action figures, it was always deliberate and I had a plan and I was, trying to do something that I wanted to accomplish, whether it was, finish a show or try to see where the story is going or, building in a fort and not quitting and keep going even though it might look bad, but that's how I wanted it to look. So that's
Yes.
a big correlate. So yeah.
Very methodical in your thinking
Yes.
step-by-step approach. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so this then leads into that looking in, where we were talking about the classes that you liked and disliked, sort of the jobs that you liked or disliked. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I was about to do the Zoom, I was looking at like what I had gotten and it all correlated. Like the classes that I liked, I always liked English literature, like a college class that I took. I really liked that. And in high school and junior high, I always liked reading and English class. I liked marketing. In college, I liked business plan and strategy, new ventures. Like I had to look back in my classes to see which ones I liked, and I really liked that one. And in high school, I really liked any history class. So
Okay. Yeah.
I think that kind of went with the stuff that I liked as a kid too. But the classes that I didn't like stats and accounting. So not the biggest fan of math, but I still
Not
got
a
through.
lot of storytelling in those.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
to the point, but I got good grades in them. So I mean, but that's just because I guess that comes back to the hardworking part. But I
Mhm.
didn't essentially like them. But those are the classes part of it. So yeah.
What about jobs?
Jobs. I remember I was writing this down and thinking about it. It's kind of hard, like growing up, whenever you're in a sport all season. So like growing up, I played basketball, football, track. So I didn't really have a lot of time to have like a job, and I didn't really get time until I got to college. And it was usually just like coaching or front desk at like at the gym at my school. But I did a lot
Okay.
of coaching during college. And I feel like same thing, like it all correlates. I just like, you know, the the storytelling, the creativeness and the aspect of helping people get better while I was coaching. Like I really liked seeing a kid not necessarily believing in themselves or they just don't know and having the opportunity to coach them and tell them that you can do this. And by the end of it, they do. So I always like that.
Yeah, so that helping component is important for you.
Yeah.
And so with as you're looking to your next step career wise, and you know that storytelling is a big piece and business planning, if you could like hand select what you wanted to do based on what you know about yourself now and your education up until this point, what would you do?
That's a good question. Like I was actually thinking about this whenever I was getting all these answers because this is a good workout thing for your mind and what you want to do. But I've always wanted to be like a general manager, like, player development and see
Mhm.
where people go, have control of that and build teams. But then again, I was doing this and I'm like, well, I don't know, I might have like a passion for something more creative, even though I do find the creativeness in being a general manager because it's literally building a team and having them go into a championship, hopefully. So I don't know, like that's really the only thing that I was thinking about. But I know I will look at these answers again and try to, you know, have it plan where I go or see where I can go from here. But I think it does help me in a path where I can, I'm going on the right path and kind of seeing what I really want to do. So
Yes, that's so great. And I think it's so cool too, because you talked about building elaborate forts and then how that connects to building teams,
Yeah.
building a winning program. So
Mhm.
all of those things are already connecting. And I think it's awesome that you're already headed down that path, which is really cool. I want to say, RJ, you're way ahead of the game in this.
I'm
You've
trying.
already put in a lot of work, which is amazing.
Like,
So let's talk a little bit. So that's more career path, which
mhm.
there's some vocation in there as well. Let's talk about the vocational thing because you described in our session prior that you found volunteer work really meaningful. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was also talking to my mom about this. Is one other things we talked about. It was very meaningful. I'm grateful from where I come from, and get the opportunities that I get. So having the opportunity to go help and do those things like Thanksgiving turkey drive or helping people pack boxes, do stuff like that. I mean, I always got a lot of joy from it because I know how fortunate I am and how I was able to grow up. So being able to help really meant a lot.
So in whatever you do, that core kind of needs to be there, right?
Yeah,
That helping.
I literally wrote that down. Literally all comes back like it's helping people at the end of the day, whether it's,
Mhm.
helping someone get better, helping people that are less fortunate, at the end of the day, it's getting better. That's the main idea of both of those, whether it's in a sport or that.
Right. And then that becomes your greater purpose in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. And so any other kind of takeaways? We're not going to get to the next two sections, but from the looking back and looking in, do you have any big takeaways that we haven't already discussed?
No, I felt like it was good for where I'm at right now, and this opportunity was great because it kind of gives me a opportunity to, sit back and look at the things that I like or that people think about me, the characteristics that I have.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I don't know, it was a good workout and I really liked it.
Good. I love how you're calling it a workout.
Yeah, I already have
No,
that sports mindset, so it's like
yeah.
I call it a
I
workout.
think that's so true. I think that is like such a huge part of this finding your way because that's what it feels like to us,
Yeah,
right? We're actually going through some methodical approach, and
yeah,
that just feels natural to us given our athletic background.
exactly.
Yeah, so
And
I love that.
I wanted to chime in here real quick and just add that when RJ interviewed to be our intern, when we did the exit interview, one thing that I remember talking to him about was is way too humble. Like if Global Life was a huge company, they probably wouldn't have hired him from the initial conversation just because he really underplayed his skill set. I don't think he underplayed. I just think it's just a humble guy, right? I have the same issue where sometimes you're not able to just say everything that you do. And I'm glad to see that even looking back and looking forward, a lot of the things that you said, I saw that in the way you worked with us as well.
Mm.
But I was really happy to see, like on the exit interview, I was just happy to be able to tell you, hey, you did a lot more than what you said you were able to do, right? So just being able
That
to
that
not undersell yourself.
Yeah, I want to thank you for that. That helped too because I'm going through that process again right now, and it's like interviews, in a way you kind of gotta sell yourself, and I've always had to adjust it because I'm just, my personality is different than that. But
Yeah.
that was good. I actually really like that you gave me that, so I appreciate that as well. Whenever you told me that, because it gives me a new outlook.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was warranted and it was 100% honest. It was just like, wow, guy, I could have just hired one of you instead of having two if I had known that you had it all. But it's good. And I'm glad you're taking that feedback.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions for RJ?
RJ, when you're interviewing now, what are the gaps and you're being asked a question and what are the gaps that you're recognizing?
So I actually was doing this interview. Well, no, not really an interview. It was kind of a conversation with this guy for the San Francisco Giants, and he was telling me like, whenever you come to an interview, there's so many people interviewing, so you gotta be ready. You gotta have these things. You gotta have questions. And it was like my first one that I've done in a minute, so I was kind of like rusty and didn't really know, like what was gonna happen going into it. So when it comes to gaps. I would just say like I can still be myself, but also, sell myself as well as a person that can do the job for whatever company I'm doing. You got to do it in a strategic manner. You got to use your like who I am to your strengths. And that's really what I got from the talk that I had with the one guy. I don't know. I'm still in the process right now trying to get better, so we'll see.
Yeah, if one of your strengths is stoic is a hard thing to overcome in an interview. It may be
Yeah.
a strength, but it
Mhm.
doesn't sell in a sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
I don't have a question. I'm sorry, Dave, were you done?
Now, go ahead, Chris.
I don't have a question. I just have a statement for RJ. I know a guy who recently got hired on as the GM for the Panama men's national basketball team.
Mm.
So if that's something you're really interested in, I would connect the two of you, and maybe I don't know what could come of that for you, but just that connection may be beneficial to you.
Right. I'd be thankful for that. I've been trying to just talk to a bunch of people right now just so I could see where to go from here. But if you could do that, I would really appreciate that.
Great. And RJ, since we didn't get to do the last piece of it, especially that finding your way matrix, I would love to have a subsequent meeting and go through that matrix together because I think that would help to bring it all together at the end.
Yeah, I think we should because I was looking at it while I was doing the first two and I was like trying to see how I would answer them and it was some good sections. So that would be cool if we did that as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. I'll send you an email afterwards.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, RJ. This was so helpful. And like I said, you really are ahead of the game. I
Yeah.
know it feels overwhelming, but you're already having the conversations that you need to be having and thinking through the processes. So way to go on that.
Yeah, thank you and thank you all for having me on here.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Jamie Ravel. She is one of my former college teammates who was also faced with the task of figuring out life after sports, really during a time where there was very little direction for athletes in this area. So, Jamie, can you give us just a brief background of yourself and then your transition out of sport?
Yeah. First of all, RJ, that was awesome. And it kind of, as you were talking, one of my things I do is I work with athletes. And what I have found with athletes, because we grew up in the top 2%, if you're a college athlete, right, you're a top 2% person. And that's just normal to us. So we don't even realize we're special. Like we don't even realize we have these advanced skills that, and I don't want to say like we're better, but that would be awesome for a company to get a hold of one of us. We don't even realize it because everyone around us was like that. When I finished sports and started coaching, I was like, oh, I was a little intense. I was a little different. And so I'll just start with that, with my background. I actually grew up playing boys baseball in Kentucky. And RJ, I live in Oregon, Illinois, which is like an hour and a half from you, but now up by Chicago. But I played boys baseball from the time I was 5, and I was the best one in the league. We had all stars. I'm part of like two state championship baseball teams, a state championship basketball team, and then I ended up getting a Division I softball scholarship. But basketball was my main sport growing up. And I was a lot like Emily, other than I never actually played travel ball because I was doing baseball, but my entire life and identity revolved around sports. And it was interesting, and it's something I see now because with my company, I do private softball lessons and clinics and all that stuff. But my main reason for doing it is helping these young athletes from a very young age recognize they're so great at sports because of who they are. They're not great people because they're good at sports. And I think all athletes that were good from the beginning, so think back to being that 5-year-old that could hit a home run. When did you get all your attention? When you achieved at sports.
Mhm.
And it caused all kinds of problems for me when I transitioned out of sports. But I had a great childhood. I had great parents. But looking back now, I was very competitive. Like, I will kill you if you're beating me at something, like unhinged. I thought that was normal. And now that I have two kids just like me, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're psychos. But when I went to Evansville and met Emily, she witnessed a lot of that. And again, though, even you're around other people, Emily wanted to win just as bad as I did.
Yeah.
And I laughed so much when me and Emily talked because I majored in history because I didn't have to take math. That's why I majored in history. And I like to read. I have a history degree, which until about 5 years ago, my dad thought I had an art degree because it's a Bachelor of Arts in history. So about 5 years ago, he was like, I don't even know why you got an art degree. You don't even like art. And I was like, I don't have an art degree. I have a history degree. It's way more useful. But again, it goes back to like, I had no idea who I was or what my strengths were outside of hitting a softball really far and winning games.
Yeah.
So that is my background.
So in your early stages of that transition, because you went on to play professionally for how many years after
So
college?
after Evansville, I actually coached at Evansville for a year. I stayed a fifth year on the girls basketball team and coached the softball team. And then I moved to Dodge City and coached at a community college. And then I coached at the University of Louisville for a year.
Okay.
And then I played professionally for 3 years and I played overseas.
Okay.
And then
So
I
it
had,
was a longer, you were in the sports world longer than I was
right,
at that
until
time.
I was about 28, 29.
Okay.
But what
So,
was interesting when I was no longer on a team, I really started showing signs of having a mental illness
mm,
that females, especially, that stuff doesn't get caught. But because of the nature of sports, I was naturally doing a lot of things that helped manage it, like exercising, eating well, having structure. When all that went away and I couldn't exercise for the life of me because I was like, why am I running this mile? We don't have a game.
right. What's the
So
purpose
there,
behind
boom, there went all those benefits. So then throughout my coaching career, I was really realizing like, whoa, something is off. Like, and it got scary. Hi, Bolt.
it?
It got scary at times. My brain went to dark places. And then, like you mentioned, the community was gone. Like our
Mhm.
Evansville team scattered all over the country. We all went and did our own thing.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the hardest transition was how do I manage life when there's not a competition coming up?
Hmm.
And how do I coach from a healthy place because I can't be on the field? So
Yes.
that was my transition. And then in 2012, right before my son was born, I got fired from my high school varsity coaching job. I went through 5 years of complete, I don't want to use a bad word, but HE double hockey sticks with
Hmm.
parents in a small town. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. I was coaching in a small town. And I actually quit altogether all sports after that. I sold all my softball equipment, all my gear. I couldn't even watch softball on TV for about 5 years without wanting to throw up.
Okay, so it was
And
a
I
trigger.
went into Mary Kay and
Okay.
started selling makeup because that I never wore. And what was interesting was within 1 year of that, I was in the top 2% of the company. And then I earned the pink Cadillac, which if you look at statistics around direct sales companies, very, 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 very few people who start a Mary Kay business earn a pink Cadillac.
Hmm.
It's like 0.001%. And that was when, and through that process, I was getting coached by a lot of life coaches who were pointing things out to me. And one of them had me do something very similar to what RJ did, only I wasn't interviewing people from my past. I was interviewing current people who are around me a lot. And I asked them, like, when you think of me, what do you think?
Hmm.
If you could tell me like my best strength, something you see me do naturally that's hard for you, what would it be?
Hmm.
And through all that process was I was 30, like 7 years old, I think. Maybe I'm trying to do backwards math. When I finally realized like I have achieved all these things because of like these five core values I was born with.
Hmm.
They didn't get developed, they didn't get trained into me. I was born, and some of it was also the ADHD we've discovered, that hyper focus, that the ADHD athletes are amazing athletes if you can channel them. I want
Right.
them all on my team because they will run you over because that is how hyper focused they get.
Yep.
So then I was like, I could literally do anything in the world I wanted to do if I wanted to do it because
Yeah.
this is who I am and those things go with me wherever I go. Not my high school batting average, not my college batting average, but the tenacity, the stubbornness, the quick processing speeds. My brain has like a really quick processing speed.
Hmm.
And then here's my kryptonite. Here are the things I would carry with me. I have to keep an eye on. It
Hmm.
wasn't until I like picked up that pink car and was like, this is just like becoming a pro athlete. It's the same numbers.
Yes.
And I was like, maybe I'm just like a really good person. Like maybe I'm just special and great and all these things. So that's when I created the Passion Driven Athlete because I was like, I don't know if you guys remember, but I think it was around 2021, we had that week where we had three Division I athletes commit suicide in 1 week. Do you guys remember that? I remember finding that out and having to go on a hike because I was like, I love Mary Kay and it's great and it's done a lot. And I have this huge team and income. But somebody has to speak into these kids when they're younger and try to flip the script for them of you are amazing because of who you are. If you quit softball tomorrow and you went and joined the theater club, you would still be amazing because you're taking all this stuff with you that made you a good athlete. And so the passion driven athlete is named that because I'm trying to help kids compete in sports from a place of passion and not from a place of chasing validation. But
So
it
good.
took me going through the process that you just did with RJ of like taking that time to look back
Hmm.
and be like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Love how the process that your mentors took you through at Mary Kay
mhm,
really, I mean, it's really the looking in section where you're building
mhm.
self-awareness, right? And then also figuring out too, after Mary Kay, what is that vocational thing? What's that thing that drives you? Right? So you had both of those things at play to get you to where you're at today. And I feel like you're probably one of the rare ones who those two are, you're finding
I
that
was
in
able to
one
put them
career path.
together. Yeah. Because I left
Yes.
Mary Kay completely. I walked away from a six-figure income, turned my car in because it wasn't aligning anymore with my passion, which was getting in a batting cage with these kids and looking for opportunities to have these deeper conversations. And there's not a week that goes
Yes.
by I don't have a girl crying in my batting cage simply because I saw her.
Hmm.
Like I
Yeah.
stopped the lesson and walked up to her and said, you're really tense right now. Do you feel like if you don't get a hit this weekend, you'll never be good enough and you're not enough? And like
Hmm.
their faces, like they and it's girls and you can feel it. And like sometimes my husband will walk by and see it because my batting cages are at our house. And he'll be at night, he'll be like, I see you made another one cry. I was like, I'm not making them cry. I'm helping them feel seen because I was never seen. My college teammates didn't even know I battled a mental health issue in college and had suicidal thoughts. Like, because if you don't talk to people about it, you think you're the only one going through it. So, like,
So
I
true.
did. I was able to just meld together. But I also know, like, going back to RJ too, and that looking back, I could not work for someone. I'm just not.
Hmm.
I don't do well with the boss or being told what to do. So entrepreneurship,
Yes.
like, so it was like, this is my gift. I can teach softball. This is my passion. Let's do a softball company because I have these credentials.
Yeah. And so it
And
all
once
worked
I
out.
understood my
Did it?
value, I doubled my prices so I can make a living out of it. And when people say you're expensive, I say, yeah, because I'm worth it.
Yeah. Yes, because you've gotten the
So,
confidence over the years. Yeah. I love that, Jamie. Thank you
yeah,
so much for sharing.
yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Jamie?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
I'm just curious. I grew up in a small country, East Texas town, and so I know all about Mary Kay. And people going door to door selling Skin So Soft and all this stuff that my
That's
grandma used
Avon's
to
just
get.
saying.
But why Mary Kay, and how were you introduced to that? Were you just running from
Wild, isn't it?
everything that seemed like
I know. If
athletic?
there was a category in high school of like least likely to ever do Mary Kay, it would have been me. I had a facial that I won at the time. I thought I won it, but they contact everyone. So this lady came over to my boyfriend's apartment, and it was the last day of March, and she needed one more consultant to sign up to earn a car. And I love the skincare because my skin was really bad. So I was like, I'll do it. I make quick decisions. I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? I'm not going to sell it. I'll just sign up. So my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he bought my starter kit. I was still playing pro ball, selling Mary Kay. They all came to one of my games with pink bows and they were like, whoa. And I was like, oh my God, the Mary Kay ladies are here. But once I got into it, I fell in love with that leadership part and that inspiring and motivating and calling people out sometimes when they're shortchanging themselves. And then I fell in love with the self-awareness. And so for me, it was, and I think it's why I shot to the top so fast because I didn't want to actually sell the product. I wanted to lead women. I wanted to coach women. I wanted to build a team, like RJ said. And we were the Gazelle Warriors, and we, sold over $2 million like in the time we were a team. Just that adrenaline rush of the last day of the month. And that's what I really fell in love with. But I could do your wedding makeup now if you needed me to as well. Like I always tell my
Have
softball
all
players,
the
I can
skills.
teach you how to hit a home run and then I can do your prom makeup. Like, why don't you want to pay me what I'm charging? So, a lot of people think Mary Kay, they think makeup and that type of stuff. But at the level I was at, it was that can we dive into these thought processes? Because you're in your life where you're at right now because of your thought processes. And if we can change your thoughts, you're going to change your life.
That's awesome.
And I held back on those conversations at the first facial because that's a lot for a woman
Yeah,
that just wanted some mascara.
yeah,
Yeah. But that
Gee,
was kind of, I loved it until I didn't, like it just ran its course for me.
yeah.
And
When
I
I,
love that you
when
weren't afraid to pivot.
I
Yeah.
had to. These kids were suffering and no one was seeing them when they were 8, 9, and 10.
Yep, that's
And
right.
that's,
and
yeah.
Jamie, that was my question is if we're talking to a general audience, to an athlete, when, and you're talking about young athletes that you're seeing them and you're seeing their stress and you're seeing they may not be finding their way or they have a conflict with their performance, their athletic performance and their self. Um, when should someone start in a process like finding your way?
It really depends, I think, on the child and the maturity of the kid. Um, I have had, because I have a program I run called Harness Your Power, that is the process kind of. I've had 10 and 11-year-olds take it, but I've interviewed like 12 and 13-year-olds who aren't quite ready for it. It's just, and what are we dealing with? Because some of the kids that come to me after, because I do like an initial sit down with them and their parents, some of them, like even at 10 years old, you can spot ADHD. You can spot if they have an anxiety disorder. I might tell their parents, like, I am not a clinical psychologist. I would go get them evaluated just to make sure that we're not dealing with a disorder. Like, my daughter just got diagnosed last week with generalized anxiety disorder, and her symptoms showed up on the softball field.
Mm-hmm.
Just like looking back, mine showed up. So that's a really hard question to answer,
Yeah.
like flat, like this age, this age.
Yeah,
And the kid has to be ready for it.
yeah, to me, it's more the individual has to be ready for it, whether if they're too young, and obviously the parent has to buy into it. But what I'm trying to think about is the trigger that an athlete needs to watch for if they can self view that says, I need to really look at myself and understand what's going on beyond my performance capability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think when it's almost when the pain of what they're going through outweighs avoiding it. Like they're ready to face the pain of looking at it, than the pain of going through having the meltdowns or not playing to their potential or the parents even because sometimes the kids just don't know any different when the parents are tired of trying everything they can to keep this kid from melting down on the field. I don't know. There's so many different factors.
No, it's a good answer. I shared with with Emily and Abby a few days ago. We were talking, and pictures of my 4.5 year old grandson, wearing his batting helmet back, his baseball helmet backwards, and and dancing between first base and second base, and having a wonderful time. And it's like, what do? You want to tell them don't enjoy it?
Yeah.
Take it seriously. I mean, so there's this, and Global Life exists to be a transformational support model and platform for athletes, no matter where they are, what gender they are, where what sport they're on, etc. And this is a really important topic.
Yeah.
It really is.
And I think at the end of the day, these kids are playing games. And if they're miserable playing a game, that's when they need help.
Yes.
And that's so much to evaluate. Is this the kid's dream or is it the parents? Has the kid been desperately seeking a way out of the sport and dad or mom? I mean, it's so complex. I think what you guys are doing is so necessary in this culture. So necessary.
Yeah. And so much of it is really the adults in the child's lives advocating on their behalfs. And like you said, truly seeing them, seeing
Mhm.
where they're at beyond how they're performing on the field.
And
Absolutely.
I've
I
had
think
to
Sid
step
had a
in a few
question.
times with some of my lessons and have a serious talk with mom and dad about, hey,
Mhm.
I'm not attacking you guys, but this is what I see.
Yeah.
And take it or leave it. And 9 times out of 10, the parents like, oh, I didn't even know. Most parents really want the best for their kid.
I agree.
Yeah,
And I'm not afraid to lose a client by pointing it out because that's how important it is to these kids.
Yeah.
If I tick a
absolutely.
parent off by pointing it out or encouraging them to look a little more deeper at how they're operating around their kid's sport and they get mad and leave, then at least I know
You did your part.
I helped the kid. At least that woman that came to me for hitting saw me at that one lesson.
Awesome,
Sid, you had a
Jamie.
question?
Yeah, I was just a slight pivot. Jamie, thanks for sharing, and RJ earlier. Jamie, when you were moving into like your own then business and coaching, how do you work out what your value is and then what you can charge for your experience and services?
So, I would recommend a book called I See You by Amy Kemp. She was actually a top director in Mary Kay and left and became a really good life coach. And she has a whole chapter about women and their worth. And for me, she told me, she goes, I want you to tell me what you think you should charge, and then we're probably going to double it. Because for women, if we're doing something that's easy to us, that's in our natural gifting, the messaging we've gotten from our culture is we shouldn't charge for that because to be successful, you should have to suffer. And athletes, come on, guys, like we have to suffer, right? Like you're not done working out till you puked once, right? Like that's how athletes are built. So she really helped me see, like, Jamie, look at your background. Like, really look at your background and this unique Mary Kay softball leadership hodgepodge you have, and why are you charging $40 an hour?
Yeah.
And the other thing she helped me understand was You might be with that kid for 30 minutes a week, but the value they're getting out of it is for the rest of their life.
Mhm.
And she said the mental energy it takes you in there is important, and that is time away from your family. So that helped. I live in a very like softball dead zone. So it was really like uncomfortable for me to charge what I was charging. And I was like, oh, I might only have 5 clients, but at least I'm working less than half the amount of time I would have had to make the same money. And I have a waiting list now.
Mm.
I do, 40 to 50 kids a week for lessons and camps. And I can't get kids in, and I'm not going to work more because I'll be less and less effective if I'm working more. But it was really hard and it was uncomfortable, but I'm used to being uncomfortable. Another athletic plus to all athletes that companies should love to have athletes as employers. We're okay being inconvenienced.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, know your value. I love that, Jamie. All right. Well, thank you. So, any other questions for Jamie? I know we're moving on the hour mark.
Yeah, I know we're at top. Not necessarily a question, just I could resonate with the hating your sport for a while. I definitely not watched basketball for a good 5 years. I was a complete hater. I didn't care about anyone that played,
Yep.
my school included. So I definitely resonated with that and being able to find a love for it in a way that is giving back for me, representing a global life manner. That was the way I know I wanted to give back to the sports, by not being necessarily just the sport, but to all athletes, because athletes, individuals, we all go through similar things. So that's where I found my calling and my looking up, right? Piece of the puzzle was finding ways to give back to other athletes to help us go through that transition in a less isolated, less depressing, less becoming a hater of your sport manner, because you're able to actually transition in a supportive way, still have a team, even if it's not necessarily your college team, you have our team there for you. So that's kind of, yeah, that was just the plus one that came to my mind when you were speaking. Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But yeah, no, thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciated your time, knowledge, and being transparent and vulnerable with sharing your stories. Jamie, RJ, thank you so much for doing that. I hope that people that are watching this are able to gain some insight from this. If you want to do the exercise, you can find Emily on our platform, the Global Pass. You can sign up, set a free session with her. She'll walk you through it, and then you can decide, moving forward, working with her or any other service providers that we have on the platform. Reach out if you have any questions. You can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, go to the website. And we hope to see you live next time. But this recording will be available for everyone. So thank you so much again
Abby, can
for
I add
this
one
time.
last just
Please.
takeaway, just major takeaway from it? I just want to normalize the fact for athletes that transitioning out of sport, that's not a season of failure, it's a season of transition.
Yes.
And I think we can often, call it failure, but you're not alone. Every former athlete moves through this process in some capacity. And so I wanted to end with that. It's not a season of failure, it's a season of transition.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. Definitely, definitely. So on
Thank
that
you.
note, I think that's a great way to close it. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you all.